are these people?
This is a warning to all of you. So in terms of making sure you have your financial ducks in a row, so to speak. So yesterday, Bezos, out of whether or not it was the kindness of his heart or just more in a way of being able to get his money, did a thing or tried to do a thing, which my guess is, and everyone's guess is, Trump bitched him out and he got his mind right after. What do I mean by that? So let's go into Common Dreams. Oop. Where we haven't talked about her in a while. Jessica
Corbett. Yeah.
We don't use Common Dreams a lot, but every once in a while, they do good work in general. But I think considering the story and considering the bigger story in light of this, Kitty.
Why are you like this? You can't show that on camera. You're not allowed. What are you doing? What are you doing? Anyway, continue. My apologies.
Actually, it will probably give us views actually with the cat. Yep. So no one's gonna be interested in the story. Everyone's going to pay more attention to the cat. But anyway,
right.
So Jessica reports Amazon won't display tariff costs after Trump whines to Bezos. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said that all companies should be displaying how much tariffs contribute to the total price of products. Basically, I think trying to, put the blame on Trump. But Jessica continues, Amazon said Tuesday that it will not display tariff costs next to products on its website after U.S. President Donald Trump called the e-commerce giant billionaire founder Jeff Bezos to complain. She says complain, I would argue other words, about the reported plan. Citing an unnamed person familiar with Amazon's supposed plan, Punchbowl News reported that the shopping site will display how much of an item's cost is derived from tariffs right next to the product's total listed price. Many Amazon products come from China. While U.S. Secretary Sub Besant claimed Sunday that there is a path to a tariff deal with the Chinese government, Trump has recently caused global economic alarm by hitting the country with a 145% tax and imposing a 10% minimum for other nations, which we have talked about before. There it
goes.
Okay. So there was a press conference about this yesterday, and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt had this to say when a reporter asked her about this thing that Amazon was planning to do regarding showing the tariff costs in addition to the price of items. So
it was reported this morning that Amazon will soon display a little number next to the price of each product that shows how much the Trump tariffs are adding to the cost of each product. So isn't that a perfect crystal clear demonstration that it's the American consumer and not China who is going to have to pay for these policies?
I will take this since I just got off the phone with the president about Amazon's announcement. This is a hostile and political act by Amazon. Why didn't Amazon do this when the Biden administration hiked inflation to the highest level in 40 years? And I would also add that it's not a surprise.
I thought your dude was the deal guy.
Recently wrote, Amazon has partnered with a Chinese propaganda
arm.
So this
not
is
the
another
Chinese
reason why
not the Chinese.
should buy American. It's another reason why we are onshoring critical supply chains here at home to shore up our own critical supply chain and boost our own manufacturing here.
Right.
Oh no.
And as we've talked about before, we don't produce much, if of anything at all, in this country. So it's very hard to buy American when there's not many things that are American made. And generally, if they generally are expensive anyhow. That's why we buy stuff mostly from China, because they're generally cheaper. But I digress. According to CNN, which spoke with 2 senior White House officials on Tuesday, Trump's call to Bezos came shortly after one of the senior officers phoned the president to inform him of the story from Punchbowl. Of course he was pissed, one official said of Trump. Why should a multi-billion-dollar company pass off costs to consumers? So come on.
There you go.
Yeah, so here's what Trump had to say when asked about it.
Okay.
So let's take a look.
Rolling the bean footage.
Great. Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific. He solved the problem very quickly. And he did the right thing, and he's a good guy.
He's a good guy. I like him now. Gave me lots of money.
No, I would argue he mafia'd him out.
Yeah,
I would argue.
He cradled the balls and whatnot. Went well for him.
Right.
You know?
So,
he bent the knee and such. Oh, so Robert Third Reich.
Hate this guy, but it relates. Robert Reich tweeted, Amazon planned to display cost of Trump's tariffs. Trump complained. Amazon backtracked. This, of course, comes after Bezos donated to Trump's inauguration and Amazon bought a Melania documentary. And remember that Amazon is being sued by the FTC for an antitrust violation. Hello?
Yeah, I mean, this is also on backs of people complaining about Paramount's like censorship only when Trump's in office. You know? Like they're blaming it all on Paramount trying to make deals with Trump. Same thing here, right? You know? So anyway, continue.
Levitt also asked why Amazon didn't have such displays during the Biden administration and held up a printed version of a 2021 Reuters report about the company's compliance with the Chinese government edict to stop allowing customer ratings and reviews in China, allegedly prompting by negative feedback left on the collection President Xi Jinping speeches and writings. Asked whether Bezos is still a Trump supporter, Levitt said that she will not speak to the president's relationship with him. As CNBC detailed Tuesday, less than 2 hours after the press briefing, an Amazon spokesperson told CNBC that the company was only ever considered listing tariff charges on some products for Amazon Whole, its budget-focused shopping section. The team that runs our ultra-low-cost Amazon Whole store has considered listing import charges on certain products, the spokesperson said. This was never a consideration for the main Amazon site, and nothing has been implemented on any Amazon properties. But in a follow-up statement an hour after that one, the spokesperson clarified that the plan to show tariff surcharges was never approved and it's not going to happen. So basically, pussy popping and backtracking on, in my mind, of what they were planning to do, and they got reamed out for it.
Yeah, they got their mind right.
Right. Before Amazon publicly killed any plans for showing consumers the cost from Trump's import taxes, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said on the chamber floor Tuesday that companies should be displaying how much tariffs contribute to the total price of products. I urge more companies, particularly national retailers that compete with Amazon, to adopt this practice.
Who?
If Amazon has the courage to display, if Amazon has the courage to display why prices are going up because of tariffs, so should all the other national retailers who compete with them. And I'm calling on them to do it now, he said.
Chuck Schumer is so out of touch, he thinks Books A Million is still competing with Amazon. That's what he thinks. Fucking Barnes & Noble gonna take it down. Sorry, continue.
He did. Congressional Progressive Caucus Chair Greg Cesar on Tuesday framed the whole incident as an example of how Trump has created a government by and for the billionaires, declaring, if anyone ever doubted that Trump and Musk and Bezos and the billionaires are all on one team, just look at what happened at Amazon today. Bezos immediately caved and walked back a plan to tell Americans how much Trump's tariffs are costing them. Cesar also claimed Bezos wants big tax cuts and sweetheart deals, and pointed to Amazon Prime Video paying $40 million to license a documentary about the life of First Lady Melania Trump. In addition to the film agreement, Bezos has come after fire for Amazon's $1 million donation to the president's inauguration fund. As the owner of the Washington Post, Bezos, the world's second richest person after Trump advisor Elon Musk, also faced intense criticism for blocking the newspaper's planned endorsement of the president's 2024 Democratic challenger, Kamala Harris, and demanded its opinion page advocate for personal liberties and free markets. So before I get into the meat of all of this, anything you want to add?
No, it just sounds like standard business crap with presidencies mainly, you know? Like, and it's, enough for the news to kind of cover the, tit for tat. But I'm sure it'll have consequences for us poors,
Well, we're about to get into that. So this is why I wanted to report on this story, because especially hearing from other YouTubers who are not political YouTubers at all, but I'm beginning to hear this story from them. So I kind of want to show you the consequences, and I think some of you might be, if you haven't seen them yet, you will be soon, of the consequences given of what is starting to happen regarding this tariff war and how China is basically like, oh, well, we ain't going to send you shit then. So, and how that's going to affect probably your neighbors and ultimately you. So, this is going to be a long clip, so you probably have to speed this up.
I did a bit.
And thank you. So this is from Epic Economist. So they're going to go into the nitty gritty of what you're probably about to see, if not seen this already. So strap in. Go ahead.
Experts are warning that the supply chain disruptions heading our way could be more severe than anything we experienced during the recent pandemic. Anyone who thinks we can easily substitute $438 billion worth of Chinese imports is simply kidding themselves. Thousands of products manufactured in China simply don't have alternative sources. Sure, we'll try to minimize the damage, but our options are limited. I recently spoke with a business owner who's already receiving numerous price increase notifications from suppliers. Apparently, hundreds of Amazon products have already seen substantial price hikes. They're raising prices on everything from diaper bags and refrigerator magnets to charm necklaces and other best-selling items as they face higher import costs. E-commerce software company Smart Scout has tracked 930 Amazon products with increased prices since April the 9th, showing an average jump of 29% across categories, including clothing, jewelry, household items, office supplies, electronics, and toys. Even major wholesalers are dealing with unexpected inventory shortages, forcing many to hunt for alternative suppliers in countries like Vietnam, India, and Mexico, though these markets can't immediately match China's capacity or productivity. This shift is neither seamless nor affordable and will likely cause prolonged supply disruptions for many everyday items. In numerous other instances, Chinese manufactured products will completely disappear from American shelves. In fact, President Trump himself acknowledges that most Chinese businesses won't do any business here while tariff rates remain this elevated. Nobody can challenge President Trump's assessment on this point, and the figures we're already witnessing are truly alarming. For instance, reports show that the volume of Chinese shipments scheduled to arrive at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach between May 4th and May 10th has plummeted 43% compared to last year, and that's according to container tracking software.
So basically what they're saying, so all the shipping ports are dead.
Right.
From what I've been hearing online and seeing online. So like LA, and mostly in the West Coast, I'm hearing right now, like Seattle and LA, like they're barely, like the last shipments that are scheduled to arrive will be next week. And then after that, empty. So this will affect longshoremen, and I know India has talked about longshoremen before, which might affect their jobs, that they might get laid off. This will also affect truckers because they have no merchandise to deliver. So this is going to have a domino effect, not just to you in terms of maybe not getting the items that you need at your local store. This is also going to affect workers in terms of there's no merchandise coming in, therefore there's no money to be had. So there's going to be a lot of layoffs as a result for sure. Go ahead.
Provider Vision. Unfortunately, this is merely the beginning. Container bookings for shipments from China to the United States plunged by a staggering 64% during April's first week compared to the previous week. Analysts attribute this collapse to importers canceling shipments to reassess costs, timelines, and broader trade strategy. This is resulting in half-empty container ships, pushing more shipping companies to cancel voyages to reduce losses and prevent fees from plummeting. The spot cost of shipping a 40-foot container has already dropped from $5,729 at the year's start to $2,793, and that's according to Zanetta, a shipping data platform. Meanwhile, canceled sailings are multiplying rapidly. Since early April, the number of canceled voyages between Asia and America's East Coast has doubled to over 40%, according to Sea Intelligence data. When examining the data, it's abundantly clear that the trade war's impact has caused many shippers to pause or completely cancel shipments, company analysts stated Thursday. Furthermore, warehouse inventories across key U.S. distribution centers are showing notable declines, particularly in sectors like home improvement supplies, budget electronics, and seasonal merchandise such as summer clothing. Retailers now caution that without timely restocking, many promotional sales and discount events might be scrapped altogether. Picture a truck racing along at 70 miles per hour when somebody slams the brakes to the floor. That's essentially what we're facing. FreightWave CEO Craig Fuller warns that trucking activity from the LA area could drop 50%, likely triggering massive layoffs throughout the West Coast trucking industry. Year over year, trucking activity from Los Angeles has fallen by 23%. Growing uncertainty over trade has already caused logistics companies to report delays in meeting even routine schedules, further intensifying supply chain problems. Given these disruptions' magnitude, many businesses are now exploring alternative shipping routes, adding pressure to the already strained global supply network. The reality is that far fewer products will reach our stores. In fact, the U.S.-China Business Council president believes that starting in a couple of weeks, we're just going to start running out of stuff. Some items most likely to vanish from store shelves in coming months include lower-cost footwear, apparel, toys, and electronics, where manufacturing is heavily concentrated in China, Gold noted. Other perishable Chinese imports like apple juice and fish have limited shelf lives and were harder for retailers to stockpile. Similar to the COVID shortage of toilet paper, we'll start seeing that with more and more goods, said Sean Stein, president of the U.S.-China Business Council. Starting in a couple of weeks, we are just going to start running out of stuff. And if the administration waits to address the problem until we have shortages and hoarding, that's simply too late. Experts are especially worried about vital industries like automotive and medical supplies, where Chinese manufactured components are essential with no immediate alternatives available. Several automakers have already warned of upcoming production slowdowns due to shortages of critical electronic parts like semiconductors and battery components. His assessment was echoed by an expert interviewed by the New York Post. China accounts for roughly 54% of all U.S. containerized imports from Asia, including electronics, toys, apparel, furniture, and building materials. The journey from China to West Coast ports typically takes 2 to 3 weeks. Rita McGrath, a Columbia Business School strategic management scholar, stressed that shortages could emerge very quickly, especially in industries heavily reliant on just-in-time supply chains like electronics and construction materials, where delays could paralyze production lines within weeks. And the CEOs of Walmart, Target, and Home Depot essentially conveyed the same message to President Trump. Earlier this week, America's most powerful retail executives visited the White House to deliver a straightforward assessment. Tariffs on Chinese goods threatened to cause empty shelves within 2 weeks without a change in policy. 3 companies at the meeting, Walmart, Target, and Home Depot, are among those most exposed to President Trump's policies, which include tariffs up to 145% on Chinese goods and higher port fees for Chinese-made vessels. Supply chain consultants are urging retailers to immediately diversify sourcing strategies, but emphasize that developing reliable new supply networks in countries like Bangladesh, Indonesia, or Turkey could take years, not months. Infrastructure limitations, quality control issues, and new regulatory hurdles could introduce significant complications into the procurement process. Because of these mounting costs, retailers
Which
are
notice
struggling
Turkey
to pass
and
price
Bangladesh,
increases
what do
to
they have in
consumers
common?
without risking major sales declines. Many have chosen to delay new product launches, to extend product life cycles, or reduce.
Repeat that.
What does Turkey and Bangladesh have in common? I mean, support for Israel, for one.
Israel. Right.
You know, so they might be getting kickbacks from that.
Right. Right. But I hope everyone is hearing what's going on. This is not, and shout out to Cowboy Kitty, because I know he's a trucker, because I actually asked him, you know, what's going on from his point of view. And actually, if you pull up, I think it's like 2 or 3 comments up, he said, when the tariffs first dropped, the company, I guess, where he works, always went bankrupt and had to take out a loan. I guess it's back up now after a couple of weeks. So already, you know, so guys, keep in mind, this is, and he also said there's going to be an interesting, I would argue, into the end of the year. So like all the promotional stuff like you are used to, like back to school, Christmas, the holidays, like might be well, I will argue probably will be affected. So like the things that you're kind of getting used to in terms of like, especially later in the year where there's typically more merchandise to pull off the shelves. I shudder to think what the next few months is going to look like, because it's either going to be very limited or none, or what you might see on the shelves will be way more expensive than it normally is because they're not getting the type of merchandise in now. Because even now, like they're starting to get this merchandise like later in the year now to prepare. So the fact that they are China's withholding a lot of this merchandise due to the tariffs, I would argue really for the next year, honestly, a lot of shit is going to be affected. So this is not, so that's why I'm saying now, prepare yourselves, because a lot of the stuff that we've become accustomed to, especially like these promotional stuff, like, you know, like coming up, you know, you're going to have a lot of things for 4th of July, you know, school is ending. So back to school stuff, you know, like holiday stuff, you know, it's going to be very limited and it's not going to get fixed right away. I'd imagine probably maybe a few months, if not to a year, if things do not stabilize, that it's going to be, it's not going to get fixed. It's not going to be like a week or a day fix. It's going to take months.
Right.
So, yeah. So that's why we're saying now, like, prepare yourselves. But obviously, like, don't panic shop. Do what you need to do now. Get your ducks in a row now. So hopefully you won't be so put out when things get worse.
Yeah.
Reduce inventory to manage the trade environment's uncertainty. At the end of the day, we're heading into a full-blown disaster. Even if the United States and China reached a trade deal tomorrow, which definitely won't happen, it would still require considerable time before all the supply chains normalized. You have an 8-week period where volumes are going to crash before they can even recover, and that's assuming things return to normal, said Dean Croak, principal analyst at DAT Freight and Analytics. All this happens during a time of the year when volumes should be increasing. Moreover, small businesses, particularly those depending on imported goods for resale, face higher bankruptcy risks if these disruptions persist. Many lack the financial reserves to absorb sudden supply shocks. Widespread closures could ripple through local economies, worsening unemployment and economic instability. Additionally, the longer this trade conflict continues, the more companies may need to relocate from China to other countries, potentially further disrupting regional and global trade patterns. While some businesses are already considering this option, the substantial costs of switching suppliers or relocating production facilities make this impractical for many. For now, it appears the Chinese are preparing for a lengthy standoff On Friday, we learned that China's Politburo has decided to implement measures supporting those affected by the trade war. They committed to coordinate domestic economic work with international economic and trade engagements, resolutely focus on handling our own affairs, steadfastly expand high-level opening up, and concentrate on stabilizing employment, businesses, markets, and expectations. And all of this according to a meeting summary released by Xinhua. By enhancing the certainty of high-quality development, we can effectively respond to the uncertainties brought by drastic changes in the external environment, it stated. Meanwhile, in the United States, those hit hard by the trade war will simply have to cope. This comes at a particularly bad moment. Economic conditions were already slowing down, and a major conflict with Iran could erupt at any time. Beyond the trade war and geopolitical tensions, another wild card is the potential for a global recession, with growing inflation concerns, increasing debt levels,
argued we're probably already in
across
one.
many industries. The possibility of a broader economic downturn could further aggravate supply chain issues. As the saying goes, when it rains, it pours. It's certainly raining now. And if the US and China can't reach a deal soon, we're gonna get complete.
What?
Yeah. So it's not looking good out there, y'all. So as I said, like I know other commentators talk about this all the time. If you're able to grow your own food, you should.
Yeah.
And you don't need a garden in order to do it now. You a root box. Even if it's just lettuce to offset the cost that you might need. Start growing your shit. If you're able to now, as I said, you don't need to panic shop, but maybe get 1 or 2 extra things now. Just stock up now. If like you need a certain toy or a certain piece of merchandise, I would suggest get it now and hold on to it if you're able to. But I think you need to start thinking like, you have to assume right now you may not be able to get the things you want, especially later in the year. So otherwise, yeah. So I will go with that mentality of like, if you're able to get it now while you can. So, but that's why even at the beginning of the show, as we keep saying, we need the support, but obviously the bigger thing is to make sure you guys are okay and to make sure that financially you're stable so that you're able to weather through this. So as much as we love the donations that we get, obviously our priority is making sure that you guys are able to withstand this tariff war. So please, please, please take care of yourselves. Make sure you're doing the things. You don't need to panic right now, but be mindful and where you can, stock up. You might have to maybe reevaluate your finances a little bit, but do what you need to do to make sure that you're able to sustain yourselves and your families and your neighbors. But yeah, this is scary to think, and the fact that it's going to be worse than COVID, like potentially, like it's frightening.
And I think that's why they're talking about it.
Right.
My thing with a lot of this and indies, we've also talked about this where it's like they throw something out there, they know it's going to be terrible, and then they bring it back to 10% of what it was.
Right.
To act like they're, gracious
doing
overlords. So
right. And the thing is, I don't feel like after this it's going to be normalized. Like as you said, it's going to remain high. So as you said, it's going to
no, they'll keep that 10% there.
That or more than likely what I believe is going to happen is Trump is going to double down and be like, when people are suffering, he's going to be like, this is China's fault. And that might, and I saw someone on TikTok mention this might elevate more Asian descent, especially among his base. So if you're of Asian descent, and we saw this during COVID, like you all also might need to be careful given what's happening. You might experience a rise And given all the talk about immigrants and all this kind of stuff, there might be a rise on that, especially online as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, socially, there also would be effects with that as well. But yeah, as Missy says, we're fucked, and like truly,
We're
royally
fucked.
fucked.
Yep.
So I am scared for like I'm almost now thinking, because I'm supposed to travel over the summer, I'm honestly debating if I should now, because it's like, you know, everything is going to be way more expensive within the next few weeks and or months, and I'm saying this as a person that is, I would not say I'm not poor by any means. I would say I'm comfortable, but even with that, I'm kind of like, it's things that I need to kind of scale back on just to ensure that I'm able to sustain myself. So
Yep.
yeah, it's bad. It's very bad.
Well, speaking of donations and whatnot, you can give to us if you've got some extra change laying around. Ko-fi.com/indienewsnetwork or that QR code on your screen. But we get it. Times are going to get tighter. So just like and subscribe, hit the share button, leave a comment, let us know what you think. How's your money going to be coming up soon? How about those Chinese exports you're pulling in? You know? Anyway, let us know. Otherwise, thanks for watching.